is called asking better questions. And this one is designed to ask questions that help create more clients. And what I figured out was the questions we're not asking cost us money. So the counter, the inverse, right? There's questions we can ask to help make us money. What are those questions? So that's what we're going to go over. So first things first, this one's so simple. I used to feel guilty like teaching. This is so obvious. But then I would do a survey at the end and, oh man, this is great training. It was super simple. I already know how to use this. I'm gonna use this on my next goal. I'm like, oh, okay. I guess I should keep doing this training, right? And this is one where I don't want you to overlook the simplicity. Is it that easy? Yes, it really is. Okay, so first of all, how do you define the question?
A question is like something that you ask in order to get more information.
Yeah, that's it. Question is, I think it's a statement designed to elicit information. It's like the Webster's, right? Got to get some info. So, what are the two kinds of questions?
Oh, I feel like I already said this. It's not open close.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I told you it's simple. It's so simple. So there's open-ended questions and there's closed-ended questions. Most people, they're like, oh yeah, I knew that. Cool, you get the basics out of the way. So open-ended questions are specifically to gain information. Right? That's their purpose. Open-ended questions start with an adverb. In English, there are 6 adverbs: who, what, where, when, why, and how. Okay? If your question starts with one of those words, it's probably an open-ended question. It's your part, right? Who, what, where, when, why, how. And when you ask that, people, well, unless they just don't feel like talking to you, they got to give you some information. So if you're like, hey, why do you have an umbrella? If you said yes, like you're being a jerk. It's supposed to rain later. Like it's sunny right now. Why do you have an umbrella? Oh, okay. I'm going to whatever. That's going to get you some information. Just someone that wants to talk, right? And we'll cover that in just a minute. Like how do we deal with people that don't want to share? We'll get to that. Now, closed-ended questions are also useful. They're not, one's not better than the other. It's just we got to use them on purpose with intention. Those start with a verb, right? Are you hungry? Right? Did you take the chicken out the freezer? It's going to start with a verb, an action, right? And they can be responded with yes or no. Now, if someone's talkative, if no, I didn't take chicken out of the freezer, but it was because, and they might tell you the story. That's fine. But at the beginning of it, it's really a yes or no. Those are for confirmation. Did this happen? Right? Do you understand? Yes, no. So we're going to confirm. Do you have any questions? That's another one people ask, right? And so the purpose of asking better questions is how do we ask questions that create conversation? Because we know conversations lead to clients. So conversations lead to clients. So we want to ask these questions in a way to help create a conversation. Questions, comments, concerns so far?
I don't think so. We have open-ended questions, closed-ended questions, conversations with clients.
Yes, that's major key. All right. Now, nothing new so far, right? You knew all this. At least conceptual. Maybe you never took a class on it. Now here's where we go another layer. I don't even know what to call it, but I just recognize the pattern. There's concrete questions and there's concept questions. You know, I love my literature, right? So let's start with concrete questions, and then we'll go to concept questions. A concrete question is designed to get some facts, okay? To get some data. Think about what you do as what's your official financial services, CSP?
What did I say? I'm financial professional.
Financial professional. Okay. So you might ask someone, what is your social security number, right? You got to have that in order to take out a life insurance policy. There's no way around it. Well, is that an open-ended question? What is your social security number? Is that open? Well, let's go back to our definition, right? Does this start with who, what, where, when, why, how?
Yeah, it is. But it's the information is okay to gain information.
That's why I want that data or the facts. Okay. Specifically, there's a piece of data at the end of that. As for the social security number, I don't want your recipe for enchiladas. Right? I need your social security number so we can put in this application. Right? If I'm helping you start your LLC, I say, hey, what is your business name? Right? You need to get this data. So those questions, I call them concrete questions because there's really only one way to answer. You either have a social security number or you don't. You either have a business name or you don't. Now, maybe you're like, oh, I haven't picked the business name yet. Well, okay, that's fine. You don't have one yet. We're going to create one. And so concrete questions can be either closed or open, but their purpose, I don't use that word, their purpose is to get that factual data. Now, the concept, let me know when you're done, and we'll talk about concept. So maybe I need to change open in the question. A concept question, I want to understand your motivation, your reason, or your why. So we'll ask two open-ended questions. What is your business name? It's New Skills New You. Okay, that's a concrete question. Ask from an open-ended perspective. Then I'll say, well, why did you name your business New Skills New You? Now I want to get to the reason. I want to get to why you did that, which is literally in the question. I'll say, well, because I believe one new skill will change your life. And that's the goal. Building a personal professional development firm with an emphasis on sales skills. Right? So I called it New Skills New You. I get it. I understand the concept around your motivation, around your reason, around your why for naming your business New Skills New You. So now we can use these more effectively now that we have definitions for them. So a general rule of thumb is you're in a conversation, particularly in a sales conversation, 80% of your questions should be open-ended and 20% should be closed, right? Now, as we go through the sales conversation, when we want to understand the client, we want to educate them, we'll use that formula. during that process, most of those should be concept questions, right? So let's say that 80% should be focused on concept questions. Once we get to a point where they've made a decision, whatever the decision is, yes, no, or later, then we want to use the concrete question. So let's say later. Say, hey, I'm not ready to make a financial plan yet, right? I don't have a job. I'm finishing up college, so I don't even have a job. Okay, I'm gonna ask some concrete questions. When do you graduate college? Oh, I graduate in June. Fantastic. What's your degree? Right? Oh, studying architects. That's pretty cool. Those concrete questions. I'm saying, hey, well, listen, when does it make sense we talk again? All right, it's a concrete question. Oh, let's see. I graduate in June. We should probably talk in May, right? I want to start my job in June. I want to have a plan before I. Okay, that sounds good. Let's talk in May. And we'll get an appointment on the calendar. So that's how I would use concrete questions for someone that says later. What if they said no? This is probably the two biggest questions that people don't ask, and I encourage you to ask every time. The first is, okay, thank you for being honest with me. Is it the price, program, or something else?
So like a why.
That is a closing question, right? Starts with a verb. Is it price, program, or something else? Well, yeah, it's price. But it's concept. The purpose is a concept. Why did you say that? And it's not to be pushy or bully people into saying yes. We're not in the convincing business. What I want to understand is that I asked the wrong questions, or did I ask the wrong person? So you help people, entrepreneurial parents specifically, create financial independence. Well, if they're 85 and it's like, man, I'm going to retire for 10 years. Oh, I'm talking to the wrong person. Now that's kind of obvious. You would have known that. But just for example, say, oh no, this is great. I just don't need it right now. Okay. That's good information. Sometimes they're like, well, I'm not really sure what you said. Okay, that's my fault. I did a bad job educating. So I really love that question because it creates a conversation. And it's not to convince them. I don't teach overcoming objections to about educating and understanding. So then let's say it is just the wrong person. The second question I ask is, well, who do you know that this is a better fit? So again, it's an open-ended question, but the purpose is to gather some specific data, some concrete data. So, well, you know what? Actually, buddy Colin just had his second kid. He's an entrepreneur. Maybe you should talk to him. Great. That's exactly who I like to help. So that's when we use those concrete questions. When we've reached the decision, we reach the turning point in the conversation. So then, questions, comments, concerns?
I don't think so. So concrete, concrete are used after a decision has been made.
Generally, that's general practice, right? We're filling out an application, we're collecting the invoice. Usually a decision's been made when I use those most often. So that's pretty straightforward. I don't know, that was probably 10 minutes. How do we use them? So we're going to think of 4 questions. And this actually leans into that 4P framework I was thinking about. And we're going to just go with the first P, which is people. And the question I give you, and you're going to come up with the rest of them, is who do I serve with excellence? And what I want to do, what we're going to do, is we're going to come up with 4 questions to help identify that person and help understand their motivation. right? So think about who you serve with excellence. We did an exercise earlier on compelling communication, and we came to the conclusion that entrepreneurial parents are someone who could really okay. What are some questions you would ask someone if you know you're looking for entrepreneurial parents?
Are you an entrepreneur?
Yep, that's a great question. Are you an entrepreneur? Now, how can we change that to an open-ended question?
Let's see, change to an open-ended question. What do you do for a living?
Okay, that's a good question. That's right. Yeah, I'll write that one down. What do you do for? All right. So are you an entrepreneur? And you may ask, are you an entrepreneur? That's fine. Right. I'm trying to get a confirmation. Hey, is this the one are you? Help. But I want you to also be in the habit of being able to ask the open-ended version. So so you can do this with attention. Okay. Off to a good start. What else do we need to ask?
Okay. Because the next one's like, are you a parent? And I'm like, well, that would be answering.
Okay. No, let's do it. Let's do it. Are you a parent?
And then make it open-minded.
Mm-hmm.
How many kids do you have?
That's a great question. It works under the assumption. I would caution. How many kids do you have? I'm sorry, what the answer is. How kids do you have? Because then they're gonna say, yeah, I got 3, 4, 5, or none, right? No, I don't have any kids. I would be careful asking that to women. That could be a sensitive topic.
Oh, yeah.
At least not asking it that way. But I like that. How many kids do you have? Oh, so, I don't have any kids. Oh,
Okay. And then to avoid that potential issue, and this was a way to phrase it to where it's not like that, right? To avoid the whatever, whatever that's. Whatever.
well, it's going to depend on the situation you're in.
Mm-hmm.
So if you help entrepreneurial parents create financial independence, it would make a lot of sense for you to go to like Mompreneurs Conference or Dadpreneur Conference, or I have some friends of mine that have a business called Fampreneurs. They help families build legacy. I think you might need to introduce you to those folks. Right? So if you go to college, university, everybody's less than 21, can't even drink yet. It might not make sense to ask that question. It might not even make sense to go, depending on your goal, right? So it's not a bad question. You just have to be careful where you ask it. So if you go to a grief workshop, people who've lost a child probably don't want to ask that question, right? So I don't have a black and white where say never ask it here, never ask it there. Just be aware. Just be aware. And you start building conversations one on one. You're like, yeah, I help entrepreneurial parents create financial independence. You have any kids? Right? Maybe you ask the closing the question. Oh, no, I don't have any kids. Oh, no worries. Tell me what do you do for a living? And say, oh yeah, I have physical therapist business, right? It's a conversation, so you don't have to feel like how many kids do you have? What do you do for a living?
Right.
It's a conversation.
Right.
Does that help?
Yeah.
All right, cool. Let's see here. All right, what else do we need to ask?
Um, How do you phrase this? Because I feel like I've done this in the past and it doesn't get reception. So,
Okay.
which is um, do you need a finance person?
Okay, that's good.
It's
Do
like,
you need a finance person? Now, so you already understand that's not a great question.
no, it's not.
Do you understand why it's not a great question?
Because I feel like one, if this is like a cold person, it's like, who is this guy?
Mm-hmm.
And that topic is something where you need some type of trust
Mm.
before you're getting into something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like that's one reason why. Number two, I feel like some people think that they need to be at a certain place
Mm-hmm.
before they even consider something like that. So they're like, oh, if I'm not making X amount, I don't even need to talk to someone.
Mm. Okay.
So that I feel like it's mostly those who was like, I don't know you, why would I tell you that? Or you feel like you don't have enough to even start.
Yeah. Okay. Those are really good. So there's four things immediately obvious to me where I wouldn't start with this question.
Mm.
First of all, assumption that they understand what a finance person is or does.
Oh yeah.
That might mean something different to someone else.
Right.
Because you'll say, hey, you need a finance person? Oh, no, thanks. I bank with Truist.
Right. Because that is a finance person, that's a banker, that's not the same thing. Okay.
No,
Or
thanks. We
accountant.
refinanced our house last year.
Right, or a tax person. Okay, that is making sense.
So let's assume that we have the same definition.
Mm.
Then the next thing is we understand your motivation. Why are you asking me this question? Which is part of the trust you mentioned.
Mhm.
And then the question is that even part of my motivations where I have some people living day to day. They just it vibes.
Right.
What's my motivation? Hey, yeah, I have a family I care about. I want to create a future for them. I might need a finance person. And then so there's motivation. So there's trust, there's motivation. And then it assumes a level of education. Why do we need, well, even if I understand what a finance person is, why do I need a finance person? And you said it before, right? I don't make enough money to talk to a finance person.
Mm-hmm.
So that question is a good question, but it has a very specific timing. There's a lot that needs to happen before you ask this question. I might use it as a leading name. Do you need a finance person? And I have a little ebook. I'm like, hey, what is a finance person? Who needs a finance person? How does a finance person help them? Here's how you get in touch with one. Here's my link. Like, there's a lot of education has to go into answering that question. So it's almost too vague to be compelling. So what are we gonna ask instead?
So instead, we would say, hmm, I guess something related to, hmm, I guess something finance related, but like not kind of like related to the transformation, I would say.
Okay, that's good. Then you're getting warmer. Mhm.
Are you financially independent?
That's not a terrible question. If I was at a conference like last October there in Atlanta was FinCon.
Mhm.
I'm like, hey, are you financially independent? Shoot, after today's session, no. They've had some education. There's some context there. You might get away with that question. Here's what I would do.
Okay.
Say, Anthony, I know we just met. I'm gonna ask you can I ask you a really tough question? All right, where are you going with this, Bruce? Sure. Anything 20 years from now, How confident are you that your financial plan is working? Oh, shoot. I don't know. I don't have a financial plan. I hadn't thought that far ahead. And I said, well, listen, I help entrepreneurs just like you. Love working with parents. I'd love to have a conversation about even 20 years from now looks like. And if it makes sense, we talk about what working together looks like. But let's get a picture of 20 years from now first. Does that sound good? Sure. All right, great. Here's how you get on my calendar. Tuesday or Wednesday work for you. So I would get permission first. Hey, this is a tough conversation. This is a tough question. This is not how's the weather question. Right. So I like to get permission. And again, I'm not gonna walk up to someone, a stranger, in Dunkin' Donuts. Hey, can I ask you a real tough question? It's gonna be a lot more headache than it's gonna be helpful.
Right.
But once we've got to that introduction, right? Hey, what do you do? Oh, I'm an entrepreneur. Oh, nice. I work with entrepreneurs, a lot of parents, helping achieve financial independence. And I ask you a tough question. All right, what do you got? Well, how confident are you your financial plan is working 20 years from now? And there's going to be three responses. They're not sure. They know it's not. Or sorry, they're not sure. They're confident, whether that's a confident yes or confident no. Or they haven't thought about it at all. And then you can decide from there. You can ask some more questions, right? You have a conversation. Well, I don't know. That's what you came to this event for, right? You came to the Russell Center. You came to this networking event. Let's put some time on the calendar to talk about it. I'll let you grab a drink and meet some new people. I won't talk your ear off, but would you open a conversation about what that would look like? And when you ask that, they're going to have some questions. They're going to try to sell it. Right? One thing I like to say is, hey, I don't know if I can help you. That's what our conversation is about. If I can, I'll give you the chance to decide if we should work together. And so most people are like, oh, okay. I'm not going to try and pressure you. I love doing it. I'm going to say, hey, listen, I'm not sure I can help you. We haven't talked yet. Let's get in the camera. Okay, great. I'll talk to you Thursday, 2 p.m. So anyway, man, I really like your bow tie. Where'd you get that from? A lot of people make the mistake of trying to have impromptu sales calls. And they make the mistake of trying to convince people to work with them. And they don't ask any questions to help understand the person in front of them. And so another thing I say, hey, listen, I'm not sure if I can help you. That's what the conversation is to find out. If I can, I'll give you a chance to make that decision. If I can't, I'll recommend or introduce you to someone that might be a better fit. Either way, I want to make sure we take care of what's best for you. I get on the calendar and then I change the subject. I'm like, hey, listen, man, I appreciate you setting that up. Looking forward to talking with you. How did you hear about this event? Oh, yeah. My buddy Faria hosts these events once a month. Oh, that's cool. How do you know Faria? Oh, this, that, and that. Oh, cool. Would you introduce me? Yeah, sure. Come on. Right. A lot of people try and have these life-changing conversations impromptu. You got to give people some heads up on that. And that's why asking better questions isn't about manipulating somebody into a decision. It's about understanding what's best for them, and then you can make that recommendation. Mm-hmm. Takes a little practice, but having a set of questions that you always ask is helpful. Questions, comments, concerns?
No, it's funny that we're doing this exercise because I feel like I watched a YouTube video last week that talked about that you need to have like a template of questions that you ask. And I was like, I'm gonna come up with that, and I'm like, oh, we're sitting here coming up with them. So it's time.
Yeah, all these trainings are exercises I had to figure out the hard way, and so I'll help people get there a little bit simpler. So, okay, we have who they are. What kind of questions can we ask about their motivation?
Let's see. If you didn't have to work, what would you want to be doing?
I like it. That's a good concept question. Talk about their motivations. Um, if you're an entrepreneur, do you ever ask people why they became an entrepreneur?
Have I ever asked someone that? I don't think I have, but that's a good question.
I love asking that question because you get so sorts of crazy stories.
Mm-hmm.
I had one lady, she became an entrepreneur. She went blind temporarily. I was like, what do you mean you went blind? She was like, I was just blind. Like 3 weeks. I was like, what? And she can see now. And so she was like, yeah, I got to get to work. And so she was like, I can't wait till I'm 65. She got to work. I never would have thought to ask that question. Have you ever been blind before? But I say, why are you becoming an entrepreneur? She's like, oh my goodness. So I went blind. Like, whoa. I'm telling you, ask that question to people that you will hear the craziest stories. You hear some boring stories, but you hear some amazing stories too.
Oh, okay. Maybe it's one for blind.
Nah, it would. I'll have to introduce you. She's actually BBC.
Oh, okay.
She'll tell you a story. It's a crazy story. It was random. I'm like, what? Let me see. What else? What else? What else? What else? Kids names. You know, a good question for parents. You ask them, hey, would you? Let's say if college was free, would you send your kids to college? Just like how they value education, and then you can start seeing how their mind works, plan towards the future. And again, that's a yes or no question. Would you still send your kids to college? That's yes or no, but it's a conceptual question because you're like, well, what what's the reason? And this is where we start having conversations. And what's really a good signal is when you get to a point where I never thought about that. That's when you're on the right track. That's when you're on the right track. We'll say, hey, well, let's talk about that. So, perfect example, the lady in the comment section, right? You ask her a question she didn't have an answer to. So that's where your calendar link comes in. Let's have a deeper conversation. You're having a conversation. You didn't just find a random person and send you your calendar link. There's a conversation that happens. That's the difference. That's the difference when I ask better questions. I'm trying to think what else you need to put on. Who they are, the motivation. That's a good place to stop. Once we figure out who they are, we figure out what their motivations are. The question you ask yourself internally is, how can I help them? Or what's the next step? Usually, the next step is going to be, hey, let's set up a conversation. Sometimes it's, hey, you got some work to do. You know, follow me on YouTube, follow me on Instagram, whatever the case may be. I like to give folks homework. Tell sometimes like, look, go send 10 messages to people. Go read Think and Grow Rich, right? And when you're done with that, right? When you're done, come out. And some people do, some people don't. But I want to talk to people that do. I don't worry about people that don't. So it's not always going to end up as a sales call. It's not always going to end up as a new client. But our goal is we're using this question effectively. More of the conversations end up as client, right? You're hearing it more often. Any questions, comments, concerns?
Yeah, that made me think about the book that we recommend, the Money Wealth Life Insurance.
Okay.
Because there's a free one online. So that's something I could start doing. Be like, oh, I recommend you read this book. It's available online. Read. Let me know your thoughts or something like that.
Yeah, yeah. That's a great way to see if they're taking it seriously. Because the last thing you want to do is take it more seriously than the person you're talking to. That's just a waste of time. Right.
Doing that.
Right. Mm. So what you want to do is you want to have about 10 questions that you ask. You may not ask all 10 every time, but there's 10 you ask the most number of times. Just use about 8 or 10. I like to ask questions like, hey, why? Tell me the last client you brought up. I brought up someone last week. Why did they tell you yes? I don't know. Why are we going to get other people to tell you? I don't know. Like, hey, we should probably talk. Like, oh, okay. Yeah. I asked, what else do I ask? It depends on the person I'm talking to. Sometimes I'll ask, hey, if we can get one more person to tell you yes each month, what's that do to your business? These are the same questions I ask. That way I don't have to guess, I don't have to remember. Oh, can't forget. It's the same question. That's what happens when you understand asking more questions. Yeah.
Asking better questions.
There it is. Boom.